Thanks for joining me today, Minister Gull Masty. Along with the Prime Minister, you will be meeting with Inuit leaders in the Northwest Territories later this week. How does the government plan to address some of their concerns about Bill C-5?
Thank you, Wajak Creason. We had a really interesting conversation last week. I think it was one that was very frank. It was constructive for me as a minister to understand, what's the Indigenous lens on Bill C-5. And tomorrow we will be traveling up to Inuvik. I'm very excited to be traveling to Inuit territory and to have this conversation, I think, with a different lens on. The governance and the approach and the relationship with federal government is not the same in both of those contexts. So I am expecting that, we'll be hear some new messaging, some new concerns. But of course, I think there's also new areas of interest.
Really briefly here, Minister, I want to hear your takeaway from the meeting from last week between the Prime Minister and the Chiefs.
I think last week it was a very frank discussion. I'm really pleased that Indigenous leadership got to hear directly from the Prime Minister. He was there for the duration of the meeting. It's a learning experience for this government. We're a new government. We have a new Prime Minister. This is a new kind of relationship that's being developed. I do think that there was, a lot of challenge in the subject, understanding what the expectation is, understanding what the next step forward is. But this was a first conversation, and for me, gave me a lot of information to reflect on. And there's going to be those follow-up tables, regional discussions, engaging more at the community level, coming to understand what is the approach, provincially with the relationship to the Indigenous communities that are within those provinces. How are we going to look at that lens moving forward? Still a lot of work to do. Of course, always room for improvement. Nothing's perfect, but I think moving forward, I feel better equipped with the feedback that I heard from participants to really have conversation and engagement that is tailored to the expectations and needs of the communities.
Minister, let's turn to the wildfire season. It seems like over the past few years, there have been a number of bad wildfire seasons, and First Nations are usually the worst impacted. Can you explain how Ottawa can lessen some of the impacts for those First Nations?
I think that Ottawa has been really reacting and really responsive to, the concerns of the wildfire season. It is unprecedented. It is on a scale that we've never seen before. There are many communities directly impacted. I want to thank my colleague, Minister Osevsky, and the other ministers that have really participated in this process to respond to First Nations communities. There's 4 parts of dealing with fire season. There's that initial evacuation. There's taking care of evacuees while they're at site. There's the next step of getting them home. And then, of course, there's addressing the long-term impacts of what happens when you are evacuated and when your territory is impacted by forest fire. So there's a lot of ongoing work that I think you'll see coming out of this process. It really speaks to the need to have a longer conversation post-fire season, sitting down with First Nations leadership and asking them, how can we better equip you moving forward? I think that we have to really acknowledge this is the new reality, that climate and climate change is impacting First Nations in a very different way. I'm very pleased to hear from my colleague, Minister Osevsky, that climate resilience is something that's at the forefront of what she wants to do in serving First Nations, and I support and echo that. And that's one of my concerns as a minister in moving forward. How can we better equip communities to be the frontline response? How can we support them in this process? And what are their needs? Should this occur in the future? Hopefully not, but should it occur again, we want to be sure that we are working, seamlessly in alignment with each other. And that also includes the approach at the provincial level. How can my counterparts and I have a discussion that is inclusive of First Nations needs, and how can we collaborate and enhance working together?
And Minister, there have been reports in the media that ISC will have to reduce its spending by as much as 15% in the next budget. How do you plan to do this without sacrificing education, healthcare, and many other services Indigenous people desperately need?
I think that these stories were very rampant in the media. I was aware that this information was shared. For me at ISC, we are really looking at ensuring when we have this discussion around budget and this budget exercise, our criteria is to make sure that we're not touching programs and services. For us, that means, we will see the sunsetting of some programs that were on an agreed period. That agreement has come to the end of life, so they will likely not be renewed. I'm also looking at, what is the effectiveness and efficiency of some modes of operation. We're looking at department reorganization, and I think the way that we serve our clients at ISK is one that really needs to be adjusted. So for me, really having this one window approach where community can come to ISK through one portal, talk about all of their issues, be supported directly, with Frontline, with somebody that's very aware of all of the needs across the community's territory or nation. That's really critical to be able to offer that service. So that means, some restructuring will be done, and our priority is always going to be responding to the community's needs. And for us to do that, we have to do a self-assessment. How are we operating and how can we offer a better service? Does that mean that there's going to be a reduction in service? I don't think so. For me, my priority is enhancing service. It does mean that there may be a change in how we offer that service, but for us, my priority is really to make sure that we are responding to our clients' needs and that we are offering service in the best possible way for those needs.
Minister Mandy-Gull Masty, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Wajah.